Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, an immigration attorney out of Texas. She is one of our go-to people to let us understand what is happening and why and what the real story of immigration is. Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Joan. It's good to talk to you again. You're one of my favorites.
Thank you. I have a question. You are an expert on immigration. You are also a lawyer. We have had some violence here in Chicago with ICE agents. One of the Chicago alder people, Jesse Fuentes, was at a hospital where one of her constituents was being treated for a severe leg injury after a confrontation and trying to get away from ICE. And she was, by her own account, asking the ICE agents, do you have a warrant signed by a judge for this arrest? And they became belligerent. They ended up shoving her. They ended up handcuffing her. And they didn't take her into custody, but they certainly abused her. They certainly harassed her. She is now going to take them to court. She has a $100,000 tort claim, and she's going to be filing a civil federal suit against them. Is that the way, since they don't listen to the courts and they don't seem to have any respect for local officials or local law enforcement, is this litigation the way we slow these people down?
I think it's definitely one of the ways, and maybe it's not fruitful. We'll see how this goes. There are some protections for peace officers in the line of duty in litigation, but I absolutely think we are seeing human rights abuses and violations by these agents. We've all seen the videos, and we need to be standing up and pushing back. And I think one of the most important things that witnesses can be doing is what was done well, I think, in that alderperson's video, is getting out the camera, recording what's going on. And as a witness, we don't need to interfere. We don't need to yell at ICE, because that's just going to ratchet up potentially the violence. They think of themselves as victims, and we just don't want to give them anything on their, that side of the argument. But when any of us is walking down the street, or we're in a courthouse, or we're in a hospital, and we're seeing something go down like this, we all need to be getting out our phones, getting as much evidence as we can of what's happening, taking notes, who's there, how many agents, what are they wearing, are they driving a car, what is the license plate? And then you can remind people who are being grabbed and detained that they have rights. They have the right to remain silent. You can even ask them, what's your wife's name? What's her phone number? I can call her for you. You can do those kinds of supportive things. But I think witnessing and gathering evidence so that lawsuits can be brought is a very helpful and useful skill in these times.
Our Secretary of State is a guy by the name of Alexei Giannoulis, and he recently posted to social media that he has created a web address and also a phone number, because somebody doing just what you said, recording an arrest by ICE, the person went around to the back of the vehicle and was recording the license plate, and the agent looked at the person who was doing the recording and said, go ahead, take all the pictures you want. We switch out the plates every day. And that prompted our Secretary of State to say, hey, that's against Illinois law. You can't do that. You can't just switch license plates. So he created a web address where people could upload the license plates on these vehicles they're seeing, and also a phone number where they could call and report the license plates. If indeed what that agent said is true, it would seem to be further proof that these Border Patrol / ICE agents don't have either any knowledge of or any respect for or any mandate to follow our actual laws.
It's just wild. Like, not even from a legal perspective, but if you are doing something that requires you to switch out your license plates and cover your face when you go out in public because you might get doxxed, I mean, you would think that they would pause and say, wait a minute, maybe we're not on the right side of justice if we're even having to go through actions like this. But I mean, I have to say, I'm based in Austin, Texas, and those of us who are outside of the state watching what's going on with you guys, I hope you feel our appreciation and our support and us cheering you on. Excuse me, my dog has decided to bark. Let me put her outside. But
that's okay.
it's really brave, honestly, what's happening within your area. And we appreciate everything that you guys are doing all over this country.
I was talking yesterday, in addition to talking to the alder who's filing the suit, I was talking to just a regular citizen. Now, he is a lawyer, but he's an estate lawyer. He does wills, and he's 68 years old, and he has been to the Broadview detention, ICE detention facility multiple times to protest because he objects to the way they operate. He said, when they are disappearing people off the streets, he said, I felt I had to do something. And he was arrested with a group of protesters, but it was really interesting, Kate, to see what he had to say. Because, Dick Durbin, our senator, Tammy Duckworth, the facility leaders over at Broadview, they won't let them in to see what's going on inside the building. But because this guy was arrested, obviously he was brought inside. And it sounds like they had two separate tiers of detainee. There were the ones that were protesting, and they knew they were really, there was no basis for any kind of charges against them. So those people got put into one room, and they were questioned, but they were also brought bottles of water. They were brought little turkey wraps from Subway. And the guy said after about 8 hours of this, they just let us go, But he said, as I was walking, I don't know if it was to and from the bathroom or wherever, he said, I saw a different room where people who were actually the black and brown people that had been swept up, he said they were standing crowded shoulder to shoulder. I didn't see anybody with any water. I didn't see anybody with any little turkey wrap from Subway. So there really was, I think they want to harass protesters, but even when you are arrested by them, detained by them, you're not put through the same sort of ringer. You don't get the same treatment as the quote-unquote illegals get. It's really a two-tiered system, it appears. I would imagine that doesn't surprise you.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, we know that racism is at play in all of this. That is what is at the heart of it all. And so they do block access both of lawyers, but they've also limited congressional oversight into these detention centers. But, I have a lot of clients in these detention centers, and they consistently report conditions problems, with not enough sleeping areas, not enough water, the medical care is inadequate, the food is inadequate. And what I see happen is that people now, they get detained. Most of them don't have actually any criminal history at all, and yet they face mandatory indefinite detention. This is something that's not really out in the news, because there's so much other stuff. But one of the things that ICE did was they took away bond eligibility for immigrants who didn't enter with a visa, which is the majority of them. So these 60,000 people who are detained in the system, the majority of them now also don't qualify to get out on bond. And so what happens on the ground is that most of these people, even though, they've been here for 20 years, they have kids who are in school here, they don't have a criminal history, they end up giving up and seeking deportation because the conditions are so terrible in these places. And I see it happen. It's usually about 2 weeks. Someone can be detained and they've got fight in them, for a week or two. Like, they want to stay, they want to fight, they want to be with their family. And then after about 2 weeks in one of these places, they're like, I can't take it anymore. Just whatever you need to do to get me out of here, I want to be gone. And it's like seeing that pattern repeat over and over and over again, it's the treatment. And that's one of the things that they talk about a lot, is just the way that they're treated and talked to like they are animals. And it's such a shock for someone to go from living a free life with their family and their loved ones into a facility like this for nothing, for going to Home Depot.
I've been reading, where was it? I saw that it was either The Guardian or the Wall Street Journal about the increasing number of people in this country from Mexico who have decided to do what they call, quote unquote, self-deporting. For just the reasons you said. They know the conditions are going to be inhumane. They have no idea where they will end up. And, it's gotten to the point for them where they just don't think it's worth it anymore.
Definitely.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And those of us, I'm sure most of your listeners care about the humanitarian aspect of this, that reality means that families are being torn apart, and that is heartbreaking. And that should matter to everybody. But I'll just say, there are a lot of people to whom that doesn't matter. But to those folks, I'll say, we also need to be considering our economy, because we're already starting to see problems within the economy based on these policies, starting in the obvious sectors of agriculture, construction, landscaping, healthcare. But even some of these other policies against H-1B visas and student visas, they're starting to impact tech and innovation. And we really are starting to damage our economy because of these policies and treatment of immigrants. All these people leaving means that we don't have workers in this country. And that seems real obvious, I think, to most of us. But it's like some people in the Trump administration just honestly haven't thought 2 steps ahead. And it's going to get bad, I think, before they start to reverse policies.
Well, we've all seen, like our favorite restaurants, maybe closing an extra day a week or not having the same hours they had before because it's so hard to get people to work. Talk about some of the other industries that are going to be harder and harder hit as time goes on.
Well, there's not an industry I think that won't be hit hard, but in Dallas, which is near where I live, construction is down 30%. You look at healthcare, okay, in the state of Texas, 1 in 3 nurses is an immigrant. 1 in 4 doctors is an immigrant. 1 in 2, a little over 40% of our home healthcare workers are immigrants. And this is, at a time we've got baby boomers who are aging, who are going to need to be cared for. So healthcare is impacted. Then we have the announcement of the $100,000 per applicant fee on H-1B visas. And that's the way that people come to the United States. They're really smart, brilliant, these engineers from India who come here and they study, they get advanced degrees, they graduate, they get a job, they start to innovate. Those are H-1B visa holders. And companies are going to pay $100,000 per applicant for these fees. So these companies start to relocate to Canada or to the UK, and all these immigrants themselves are like, you know what? Never mind. I don't want to come anymore. So we start to temper down our innovation too. So really any sector that you look at, the Department of Labor, Trump's own Department of Labor, published a regulation a couple of weeks ago, and these are the words, saying we are about to experience a shock-induced food shortage in this country because of immigration actions by the president. It's in the regulation by his own agency. It really is. It's just everywhere. And I think the thing that's so frustrating is that you read this stuff and you're like, of course, this is what's going to happen. Everybody with, who can draw with a crayon can see this coming. Why are we not thinking about this? And it's just, I always go to the bottom line. What's the bottom line? Why are we still pushing this? And why is racism working for the Trump administration?
There's the $64,000 question. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney out of Austin, Texas, and I are going to talk about that when we come right back. Immigration lawyer Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch works out of Austin, Texas. She is here, though, on a reasonably regular basis to answer our questions. And I want to talk about, Kate, what you just said. Why is the racism working? Why?
Well, okay, so I said it, and then you gave me a break to think about it, which was useful because this is such a deep question, isn't it? I think that there's, if there's a spectrum of folks, starting with one end of the spectrum are just the outright unapologetic racists, the white nationalists who are marching. And that's, one subsection of people that I think is rather small. I think that there are a lot of folks, however, a little further in on the spectrum who struggle. They feel kind of bad about life, trouble making ends meet, hard time finding a job, aren't really political, don't access a lot of, standard media, and they're misinformed. And when they, and we're a tribal species, right? And so when they hear messages from people in leadership telling them that immigrants are bad and here to take their jobs and here to take health care and just suck the system dry, and the reason you can't get ahead is because the immigrants are here. Well, that's a pretty effective and actually soothing message for people who aren't, thinking it through and researching it. And I think that Trump has really tapped into that and understands. I mean, I'm sure they've done actual, polling and research. And when we say this, does that get people motivated? And it does, because people are tribal and that message feels good, and then there's people a little further down the spectrum who are a little bit suspicious of Trump and the way that he would talks about immigrants, but that they believe that border security is important, and they believe in law and order, and they think that people should do things the right way. And for those folks, I think that the messaging has been imbalanced. And this is one thing I would fault the Biden administration for, and the Democratic Party overall, is we have failed to balance out the messaging about immigration and the positives of immigration and what Democrats stand for. And we've allowed all of this to be defined in a very negative way by conservatives, the far right, the Trump administration. And we've been sort of like, ooh, what do we say? We don't want to, it's a hot potato. Don't want to talk about it. And it has created an imbalance in the rhetoric. And then here we are, 9 months into the administration, and we're like, wait a minute, there's all this video of you detaining and separating and terrorizing good, decent people without criminal histories. That's not what you said you were going to do. And so I actually think that's great that we're getting a lot of this fed, out to the American public, because those people in those middle ends of the spectrum who aren't just outright, sort of racists, then those folks are starting to go, okay, hold on a minute. Maybe I was told the wrong thing, and I was lied to. And I get messages from people regularly who are telling me that. So I think I'm right.
Wow. Do you think that there is a lot of buyer's remorse in Trump voters?
Yes. I think I think that takes a level of emotional maturity to be willing to admit. And so there's a healthy number of people who just aren't willing to go there. And you can find news telling you anything you want out there on that internet right now. So there's some people who are just not willing to go there, but there are big groups of people, and I get DMs. People who say, I voted for him. I supported him. I thought he was going to go after the bad ones, but now I regret it. And the numbers are showing that too. The opinion polls are showing that too, that public opinion is dropping in support for what Trump administration is doing. Not as far as it should be, in my opinion. I mean, it's still like, in the 40s are in support, but it's falling. And the more of these, horrific stories that we see, the dad, this was in Chicago, the dad who has been here 20 years. His 16-year-old daughter is battling stage 4 cancer. She got released from the hospital for 48 hours. She got to go home for 48 hours. And during that window, her dad went to Home Depot and got taken by ICE. And ICE tells everybody, oh, he's I think they said a violent criminal alien. I'll have to go back and check the exact wording. This guy, in 20 years, had a ticket for driving without a license and a ticket for speeding. And so that story is being told. And this little girl, this girl in chemo, she's obviously very sick, going on the news and saying, I only have 48 hours with my dad, and now he's been taken. That kind of stuff getting out to the American public is what's going to turn this. And that's what's got to happen. We have to be telling these stories.
Are we getting good data? Because I know locally ICE doesn't seem to want to ever talk about how many people they have in custody. Heck, you're lucky if you can figure out where a family member has been shipped off to. It seems like there is a real lack of reliable data here. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it surprises anyone to know that the Trump administration is not providing full transparency into their activities on immigration. I mean, what we do have are the overall numbers of people detained. It's almost 60,000 people. We do know that over 70% of them have no criminal history. We do know that these private prisons are run by, for-profit companies with shareholders who are becoming enriched on these immigrants' backs. So we have enough data to know it's bad, but it's, locally it's hard to, you can't find in Chicago how many arrests and how does that compare within the past? No, they don't share that level of data.
Oh my God. Kate, thank you so much. The time has flown as it always does when you talk about this. In the few seconds we have left, is there one message you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
I'm still on a high after the No Kings rallies over the weekend and the fact that, more than 7 million people showed up and were joyful. And we were protesting serious stuff, right? Human rights abuse is very serious stuff. But we got together and it was peaceful and it was joyful and we felt community and we stood for our democracy and we're reclaiming the image of the American flag and we've got each other's backs and this country is awesome and so are immigrants and everybody knows it and it's going to get better. We just have to keep talking about it and sticking it together and not give up. That's what we got to do. Keep working.
We will. We promise.
Okay.
I promise you, Kate. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney out of Austin, Texas. Thank you for being here so much.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.